All right, everybody, welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. For the first time in the 2020 football season, I cannot tell you that we are celebrating a Steelers victory. The positive of that is that we won the first 11 games of the season, so that's a pretty darn good positive. The negative is, of course, the loss, but more so how everything unfolded on Monday in Pittsburgh against the Washington football team. I'm sure I'll say that other term at some point, so I'm just going to throw that out there right now. Don't mean to, but I probably will. Joining me tonight are Ben, and Ian is back from his 2-week hiatus at the NFL referee camp, where he's been instructing the referees on how not to be jackasses.
They didn't listen to me this week either, because they really screwed that one up at the end of the first half.
Clearly they did not. Guys, there's a lot to talk about this team, and I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you're 11-1. What are you bitching about?" Blah blah blah. I said this right after the game. If you watch this team week in and week out, this was coming. Something like this. We had gotten a lot of breaks, and the breaks kind of went against us. Things didn't go well. The injuries mounted, and it just perfect storm. We get the L and we move on. Ian, what were your general thoughts after Monday?
The second half was really ugly. I would say my general thoughts are that there are only so many injuries to starters that you can sustain on defense before you start looking like a second string unit. And we kind of found that tipping point at some point during the game. I think it was when Hayden went out was really the big one. Spillane going out was noticeable, especially with our inability to cover J.D. McKissick out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. But you really started to notice it with Hayden, where they started to have guys running wide open through the secondary. That touchdown to Logan Thomas. There was just a lot of open receivers, miscommunications back there that you don't get when you have Hayden in there. Mm-hmm. Look, Nelson's been practicing this week, so hopefully he's able to come back. Hayden didn't practice today, so he's got to clear the concussion protocol. So we'll see how that goes. But it's gonna be some tough sledding this week against a pretty good Buffalo team too. A Buffalo team that's well balanced. They run the ball well, they throw the ball well. On the defensive side, and it was really the defense obviously blew the lead in the second half. We were up 14-3 at halftime. Shouldn't have even been 3, and that 3 points, which should never have been put on the board for a variety of reasons, the refs completely screwed that up. I'm going to
let Ben give his thoughts, and then we'll get into that.
That wound up being really big. Those 3 points mattered a lot down the stretch, especially. But like you said, didn't get the bounces. Ben got the ball with 2 minutes left, a chance to drive down and either tie or win the game, and wound up getting a pass tipped, and it got picked off. And there were a number of those passes that got tipped. Montez Sweat had a bunch of them during the game. And those things happen, but you have to work around them too. The offense wasn't clicking at all. The short yardage looked like we were back to last year when they couldn't do anything in short yardage situations. And we have a fullback on the roster this time around, but they, for some reason, didn't use them. The short yardage play calling was mind boggling. I mean, throwing a wheel route fade to Anthony McFarland of all people when you have so many other options and weapons on the team. And it's just the play calling was mind-boggling. The execution was terrible. The offensive line played bad. They played really bad. I mean, it was noticeable that Washington's offensive line was getting a push of a couple yards off the line that, even when Peyton Barber was in there, he was grinding out 3-4 yard runs just by running into the back of his offensive lineman. And then our offensive line on the other side's getting blown 3 or 4 yards back into the backfield. And our guys, when we did run the ball, what did we run? 15, 16 times the whole game. Just didn't have any room to operate. It was, everything's broken. It's back to the drawing board on offense. Offensively, they look like a team that's been doing virtual meetings for a month. And I know they've been doing some practices, some walkthroughs, but they look like a team that's completely out of sync and really needs to get back into some hardcore practicing together time and a team that played, 2 games in 5 days too. So let's not overlook that the NFL didn't do us any favors with moving these games around. And my final thought, though, is that this loss isn't the end of the world.
Nope.
We're still ahead of the Chiefs in the conference standings because this was a non-conference loss, and the Chiefs' loss was to the Raiders, who nearly lost to the Jets. So go figure. Should have lost to the Jets if the Jets
Greg
cover
Williams.
0. Thanks. Yeah. But also the NFC East now has 2 teams this weekend that beat pretty good teams. Not only did Washington beat us, but also the Giants went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks in a game where Russell Wilson got the ball with 2 minutes left. And I mean, he's usually automatic in those situations to march down the field, let Russ cook and score a touchdown and win the game. And they failed on 4 downs. I mean, they did not execute the drive. So the Giants defense stepped up and got a big win in Seattle, and then Washington came to Pittsburgh and won. So those top 2 teams are kind of now keeping pace with each other. That Russell Wilson gets talked about as an MVP candidate.
Not anymore.
That just sounds like so much excuse making, though. I really don't give a shit what Russell Wilson did this week. I don't care.
I'm just saying that, I'm saying good teams have bad games is my point. That the Seahawks are not infallible. The Saints are not infallible. The Steelers obviously are not infallible. We're a good team. We had a bad game, but we have to find a way to fix it. We have to find a way for it to just be one bad game and not become a streak of bad games in a row.
And to further the point, Ben Roethlisberger takes so much crap, whereas Russell Wilson, if he has, a bad series that leads to a loss, say, oh, well, no big deal. Somebody did this, somebody did that. I mean, if Ben has the same thing, well, it's all his fault. So
right. Look at the Chiefs struggled to beat Denver, who's terrible. And the excuse making in that game was, oh, this is just one of those division games you get in the NFL.
The Chiefs have been like that for about 5 or 6 weeks now.
They barely beat Carolina.
They're not blowing anybody out.
No,
exactly.
No, Ben, go ahead. Give us your thoughts on the loss.
As far as Roethlisberger goes, since we're talking about this right now, he threw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was picked off on a play where I don't understand why the offensive linemen let the D linemen jump and put their arms up. We were coached, and this is a long time ago, but we were coached that if a lineman did that, you punch him in the fucking gut. Or, Craig Wolfley was talking about it today, and he's like, yeah, we just put our helmet in their nuts. I mean, and then they lower their hands real quick to protect themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, or you grab them, you throw them down. Why are they just letting them do it? There's you got guys playing volleyball player out there because they're expecting the Steelers to throw the ball short. Anyway, Roethlisberger had 8 drops and still threw for 300 yards. All right. By my count, 8 drops. I think the official count for the team was 7. So it kind of depends on, who you're talking to. I've got 17 drops over the last 2 weeks. They have 15. Drops are a problem. They are a trend. That is the big storyline for the offense. That was ridiculous. Then you've got the fact that they could not gain 1 yard on 7 different attempts. They needed 1 yard 7 times, 5 times from the 1 yard line. Couldn't get across to score a touchdown. 5 tries. Then they had a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. They failed on both of those in the same series. If you convert even one of those, which is an incredibly low percentage, you probably win this game. One shot. That's how bad this offensive line is and how far they have fallen. And Matt Filer, I'm sorry. He is not a good guard. I really thought that he was going to be a lot better than this.
I did too.
He has been an incredible disappointment. And Monday, he was flat awful. Awful. And Matt and then Ebron. Why we're leaving Eric Ebron in line on run plays and trying to get him to block that 4th down from the goal line?
Oh God!
Where he let Chase Young in, he whiffed at him. He wasn't even where he was trying to block him. Young was already gone.
Yeah. He was punching at ghosts. I mean,
he was blocking the air. It was pathetic. I don't know why you ask him to block a player of that caliber. That I just don't understand. I mean, at least put Vance McDonald in if you're going to do that.
Well, to be very honest, Ben, watch Vance on the other side. He didn't do much better.
He did better than that. Actually, the whole line except for Ebron was in the end zone. Everyone except for Ebron, who was standing there going, "Oh, what happened?
What happened?" Well,
basically, I didn't think the defense played that poorly. They had a couple of gaffes here and there. I thought they looked gassed, frankly. The play that jumps out to me is when they had them at 3rd and long, deep in their own end of the field, and they ran a screen and got, 23 yards on it for a first down. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man.
That's an exhaustion play. I agree with you.
Yeah, all you had to do was hold them to 7 or 8 on that, and you would have gotten the ball back. But you let them get 23. That's tired legs right there.
It is. And I also think, too, that is becoming a bit of a thorn again. I can remember previous years where it seemed like we just could not stop teams on 3rd and long. And I don't think it's to that extent, but all of a sudden it's popping up every once in a while. And it happens. It's the NFL.
I'm not concerned about the defense, honestly. I'm less concerned about them than I am the offense. We'll get Nelson and we'll probably get Hayden back Sunday.
Hopefully.
It looks like Spillane's going to be out for at least a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like his MCL. So I would think we're probably looking at more like 3.
I would agree.
The good news, I guess, is that Avery Williamson led the team in tackles, but I was not overly impressed with him. One other piece of good news is that Ulysses Gilbert started practicing today and can be activated this week, but doesn't necessarily mean he will be.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because Bill on Twitter asked us about him today, and thanks for listening, Bill. He's always wondering when the show is on and is a regular listener, so thank you, Bill. Gilbert has had that back injury, and you were talking a little bit about it on social media today. I mean, you might remember Cortez Allen, who had the chronic knee problem. You wonder if this back issue with Gilbert isn't something similar because it seems to kind of pop up all the time. But he is eligible to return this week if necessary.
He is, and he can be activated as late as Saturday. So
okay.
We'll see. I tried to find out, kind of where things were today and didn't get anything really on it. Nothing significant. The only thing I got was that Spillane is going to be out at least a couple of weeks. As we get more, Bill, I'll respond back to that tweet and let you know if I find out anything more on it. But
okay.
I mean, all I can tell you right now is he's healthy enough to practice. He practiced fully today. There were no limitations. And I imagine that if his back feels good throughout the week, he will play. If he has a relapse and there are issues or he's got tightness, they'll probably be conservative and not play him. At least he's a guy who's got that sideline to sideline speed that you need on those sub packages. And he's got some familiarity with the defense. He's still kind of a young player because of his lack of playing time, actual playing time on the field. But, he can contribute. That's so my perspective. I'd rather have him out there playing in the dime than Dangerfield.
No, I totally agree with that. Guys, I do want to address the end of the half. A lot of fans had questions about exactly what was going on there, and we spent a great deal of time talking about it right before we started recording. Again, Alex Smith is tackled. It's a sack. The clock is running, and he runs off the field with the ball. And our take is that should have been a delay of game. It's no different than a player who makes a big play and gets up and, jets the ball down the field with his hand or kicks it downfield. It's a delay of game.
Which should have been a 10-second runoff inside of 2 minutes.
Exactly, which would have added that 10-second runoff there. And then the other thing, which Gene Steratore also brought up, the rules guy there, he said that in those situations, the officials do not have any care in the world about making sure to get the K ball, which is the ball that is specifically used to kick, into the game. When the clock's running, you spot the ball, you get the hell out of the way. And so this administrative issue thing should not have been. And I also want to make sure that I say I am in no way suggesting that this cost the Steelers the game. There are way more other things, much bigger. But you can't deny that it was 3 points that ultimately could have changed the game. So, Ian, what did I leave out? What did I miss there?
So, yeah, you got it right on the 10-second runoff is what it should have been with Alex Smith running off the field with the ball. In most situations like that, players are smart enough. I mean, we've seen Larry Fitzgerald run over, take the ball from the guy who got down, and come out and set it for the offensive line to get a snap off. That the official should have, gotten the ball, or they should have had one ready on the sidelines to go to just throw in there. Either way, they shouldn't have put time back on the clock. I mean, that was some bullshit that they basically freely awarded Washington
I agree.
a kick with the clock running, and the clock ran out on time. Whether it was the official's error because Washington ran off the field with the ball, I mean, the clock should never stop in that situation when there's a sack. And the officials freely awarded Washington 3 points, and that was huge down the stretch in a game where, I mean, imagine the difference if Ben gets the ball back and it's tied with 2 minutes left rather than, it's we're down by 3. But
it's an extra timeout, man. Effectively, they gave them a 4th timeout.
Yeah, that's true. I want to dive into the glaring issue here, which some people it's the running game, some people it's the offense, some people it's both, and so Ben, start to walk us through what is happening, because I think the Ravens did a pretty good job of recognizing, and then Washington. I almost said Redskins. They kind of piled on, picked up that scheme a little bit to attack those short throws, get arms up in the air, force those receivers to really struggle coming off the line. So what does all that have to do with the running game and vice versa and all that other stuff?
I don't necessarily think the two things are related.
Okay.
I think the running game really comes down to the lack of fundamentals in blocking being executed by the Steelers' offensive line, and it's the line. Look, the running backs are nothing special. I'll be the first person to admit that. McFarland is obviously trying to get too fancy. He's dancing around in holes instead of just going and making one cut and running. He's your home run threat. If he ever gets out in the open field in the space, look out. That kid could literally take it to the house. But, he's got to get there first. And he's trying to make people miss before they're even close to him, which you can't. Nobody's afraid of you, kid. Nobody's worried about you making the miss yet. You're nobody. You're nothing.
Right.
So knock that shit off. Benny Snell's a one-trick pony. He's a straight-ahead runner. That's it. Samuels is playing his way out of the league. I guess he's a third down back now exclusively, and they don't throw to him. So, whatever. But if the line doesn't make room for these guys, they got nowhere to go. They're not as bad as they look. They're not special, but they're not that bad. And in particular, when you watch these guys on film, their pad level is ridiculous. They're standing up trying to run block. It's like, what? How do you think you're going to win? You're not.
Is that a product of doing so much pass blocking?
I don't know. I think it's a product of not practicing in pads, frankly.
Yeah.
You don't practice in pads for a long time, you forget that you got to do that, Under and up, under and up, under and up. Low man wins. How many times did we get screamed at about that? You know? I mean, if and granted, 16-year-old kid, you can run all day, but if I was trying to block the way that these guys are, I'd be running every day after practice.
Yeah, I agree. Ian, what are you seeing on offense here?
I absolutely agree with Ben's analysis on the pad level. It's really bad. That said, some of it's personnel choices. I mean, they're having Anthony McFarland in a game or Jalen Samuels in a game when it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, having Benny Snell run routes out of the backfield and try and throw him passes. It's just they're not aligning their personnel to their strengths. They're throwing guys in the game and trying to run the same plays rather than trying to run plays best suited to the strengths of their players. They're trying to make the players fit the scheme instead of the scheme fit the players.
Yeah, there's some of that, but the execution is so poor that honestly, I don't believe that it would matter what play was called when we're dropping passes. We can't block. Our running backs bring nothing special to the game. The only shot we have is getting the ball to the wide receivers in space. And when the defense knows that, they can defend that.
They can, but also, throwing a pass to an eligible offensive lineman on the goal line,
man.
Short of the goal line,
terrible.
Not even throwing it to him in the end zone where all he has to do is catch the ball. Throwing it to him short of the goal line.
Yeah, he wasn't going to score even if he caught it.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Randy. He sucks. Okay, so we're absolutely clear. What I am saying is we could have a fantastic offensive coordinator right now, and I don't think it would matter because our guys are playing that poorly. Yes, the play selection was ridiculous. And Gerald Hawkins getting stuffed on that play and getting out into the route late was ridiculous. And then falling down. And Ben's going to, he's going to put it out there quick.
Yeah,
because
he has to.
Professional football. And by the way, Chase Young's coming to chase him down. And, Al's not really that effective at blocking him. So, terrible play selection. I don't understand why they did it. That wheel route you mentioned before to McFarland, what the hell was that? Yes, no question. Randy sucks, but the players suck too.
It's definitely a two-way street. Okay, you have to attribute some of the poor play to the lack of execution. There's no doubt about it. And of course, you attribute some of it to just awful play selection, personnel, everything else. What has happened to, and Ian, I'll ask you this, what happened to the Matt Canada influence? I don't see any of that jet motion anymore. And I'm not saying that it needs to be on every play by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just disappeared. What's going on?
You're right. It has. It's almost like since Matt Canada tested positive for COVID and had to miss a couple meetings that I don't know, they're not using it anymore. And I don't want to blame COVID for
no, I know.
Canada's lack of influence, but it's almost like it worked really well in a couple games. I mean, the game against the Eagles in particular, because they were really bad at defending those outside runs. I mean, Ray McLeod got a couple, Chase Claypool around the end got a couple that, we made them respect those jet motions, which slowed down the linebackers and opened up stuff down the field for Claypool also. They're not using Claypool or as much. I mean, he only had a handful of his snap count was way down this time around. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I know Ben has been pretty vocal about wanting more snaps for James Washington, but I don't know if James Washington's snaps need to come at the expense of Chase Claypool.
Exactly.
Right. So they've got enough guys to go around. And some of the specifically Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron have been really bad with the drops, but I mean, Juju's dropped a couple. Claypool's are tough. I mean, could you call his drops? Yes, the ball hit him in the hands. Was there also a defender's hand there making a play on the ball? Yes. So those ones can go either way. I know Tomlin said that he counts basically pass breakups where the receiver gets his hands on the ball as drops. But and James Washington's had a couple of drops too, but he's made a couple of great catches. I mean, he made a game-saving catch against Baltimore. So it is what it is. But also when we throw so many quick passes, that keeps the safeties and the defense a lot closer to the line, that you got to throw the ball down the field a little bit to stretch the defense out, to at least create some room for the running game. Our best running game the last couple years, I mean, the sort of Duck Hodges time notwithstanding, but has been when we've gone 3 wide receivers and run the ball with 1 running back and 3 wide receivers to, stretch the defense out side to side a little bit, and run usually, I'll say like a off guard play, sort of through that B gap between the guard and the tackle is usually our best running play. Sometimes it's a trap, sometimes it's a zone, sometimes it's a counter, but it's usually in that range where you get one guard pulling around and then someone leading the way. But Filer's been so bad in getting blown off the ball that even when DeCastro tries to pull around, there's no room for him. I mean, at this point, it's worth giving Kevin Dotson a shot just because at least he's a road grader. He can go forward. I mean, Filer might be a little bit better in pass blocking, but Dotson's a lot better in run blocking.
Yeah, I agree. And that was actually what I was going to ask Ben. There's a lot of scuttlebutt coming out that there's going to be some potential shifting around of offensive line this week. I mean, is that the one you would expect to see, is maybe Dotson gets an opportunity to start over Filer?
There's scuttlebutt about that, and there's talk about maybe Filer going back to right tackle, as an improvement as a run blocker there. From my perspective, it's not going to be an improvement as a pass blocker at all. So I don't necessarily see wisdom in this movement, but I cannot get any confirmation on the possibility that this is going to happen. My understanding is that Tomlin was really not happy with Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron in particular, because they dropped the ball the way that they did. Had a lot of issues with the offensive line, but that was the whole line as a unit. He didn't single anybody out, and frankly, they sucked. They have not been good. And hopefully, with Pouncey coming back, if he does come back this week, he's eligible to come off the list. What we figured on Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be the target date.
Back, he'll at least the line will be more cohesive than they were last week. Hassenauer.
I want to talk about that for a minute, if I can jump in.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the one thing I noticed specifically watching this game was that Hassenauer's shotgun snaps are really friggin' slow. Right? There were times it's almost like when you're a kid and you're playing the game where you're trying to keep the balloon in the air. Like, it's almost like he was snapping a balloon back to Ben and he was just tossing it up into the air. Like, Ben was having to reach forward, grab the ball, and then try and get a grip on it. And there were multiple times in the game, and I know Chase Young has an insanely quick get off the ball.
He's a quick dude.
There were times when Chase Young was already on Al's shoulder before when Ben was just getting his hands on the ball. So I mean, at that point you got to grab it, grip it, and throw it before Chase Young kills you. So just the speed of the snaps, it's those little details in the game that make a big difference. Whereas Pouncey's putting the ball they talk about this with long snappers all the time, and you see it somewhat with centers and shotgun snaps too, but it's accuracy and velocity are the two key things. That you want, especially for long snappers, but also true more so now with regular centers and shotgun snaps, that you can't just float the ball back there to them. You're not in your backyard playing catch with your kid. You got to snap it back there so that he can get a grip and actually have a chance to survey the defense before one of those defensive ends kills him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we had several people comment on that earlier today and had a good conversation about it. One other thing I wanted to ask, and Ben, I'll ask you this. why does Randy Fichtner tend, when he goes 4 wide, he likes to include Ebron out there? Why not go Juju, Johnson, Claypool, Washington? I don't see that very often. Why is that?
Well, he does do those 4 and Ebron, and he goes empty set. Does that all the time. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, but recently, though, it's mostly been, if he does empty set, the running back is usually spread wide, though, isn't he? And then Ebron still...
The running back is, or they use Ray McLeod.
That too.
I don't know. He likes Ebron. I'd like to see them run more deep routes up the seam with Ebron and use him to pull the defense back away from the line, keep him honest. The fact that they're not doing that they're having him run a bunch of shallow routes is what bugs me about the way he's being used more than anything else. He can't block to save his life. He's not going to start being able to block. You kind of had to run some quick stuff versus I was just about to call them the other name, the Washington football team.
We've only been calling them that for like 50 years. And, give us a little bit of a break.
Because Young was getting off the ball so fast that, you only had about 2.5 seconds from the snap to get the ball off, to get the pass off. So you couldn't hold it a real long time and throw, real long passes. You had to throw it into some quick developing routes. So that being the case, if you can pressure Ben quickly enough, you can keep your guys back, get them as close as they can to Ben, and then wait for him to throw it. And as soon as he puts it up, get ready to block it like you're playing volleyball. But again, getting back to what I was saying before, I don't understand why when a defensive lineman who's standing in front of you, literally arm's length in front of you, puts his hands up, you don't grab him and shove him to the ground. I don't get that.
I don't know if you guys caught this, but in one of the replays of the interception that sealed the game, you can see Ben kind of look in the direction of Chuks Okorafor, almost looking at him as if exactly what you're saying. Like, why didn't you get him on the ground, or why did you let him do that so quickly? Maybe I'm wrong. That's just kind of the way I read it, and maybe that's the way I wanted to read it.
Same way. The look on his face was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you know what position we're in right now? That was exactly the way I read it.
Yeah, that's, good.
And I've been wondering that 4 weeks. It's like, okay, we got these guys that are, Ben's 6'5", and those guys are 6'5" too. And so they're just going, okay,
yes.
I'm just going to wait. I'm going to pick my spot. And when I have a chance, I'll put my hands up and I'm going to try and knock it down. But they're not only putting their hands up, they're jumping in the air. So grab the guy inside and hold him down.
Yeah, it's a question I get quite a bit. He's so tall. Why does he get so many passes knocked down? Well, he's going up against guys the same height, and they're jumping, and they're also
receivers that are 5'10".
And he's throwing to receivers who are 5'10" that are basically right in front of him. It's not like you can put a lot of arc on the ball.
I mean.
Yeah. Hey, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing, which, of course, serves Broward and the Southern Palm Beach counties down there in Florida. Whether it's commercial or residential, multifamily, or condos, contact DEK Roofing today at dekroofing.com. I want to flip it over to the defensive side of the ball here. Ian, what was your take on Alex Highsmith's first NFL start, filling in for Bud Dupree, who, of course, we're now without for the season? What'd you think?
He wasn't terrible. He didn't really flash a whole lot. I mean, he got around the edge a few times. He showed a little bit of power. He was not a liability against the run. So I'd say not a bad debut. I mean, let's remember he was picked at the tail end of the third round. So, this isn't a guy with first round pedigree. He's a workhorse guy who's going to just kind of like TJ Watt coming. I mean, TJ Watt had athleticism to burn. Let's not, conflate the two, but TJ Watt's game style was that, he was relentless. He, in pursuit, things like that. And Highsmith has a lot of that similar quality of he's relentless out there. He's, still a little bit raw from a technical standpoint, but it wasn't terrible. He wasn't a liability out there. I'll put it that way. He's certainly better than Anthony Chickalo was.
Wow, there's a name.
He's wearing the same number, so
that is true. He made one play that I wouldn't really call it a splash play, but I think it was an important play when he was literally rushing the passer. The ball got out. He turned and got to Terry McLaurin before he could get his wheels going. And if he doesn't make that tackle, that's going to be a big gain. And that was one of those plays where I thought, okay, I like what we're seeing here, and so on. Ben, what was your overall take on him?
Pretty much what you guys have already said. I really don't have anything to add there.
No, that's fine. I didn't know if you had seen anything. I mean, I thought he did his job, and I'm not going to take anything further than
basically,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what we're dealing with. Robert Spillane, as we mentioned earlier, looking at 2 to 3 weeks out. If Ulysses Gilbert isn't available, isn't activated, so we're looking at Vince Williams and Avery Williamson. Ben, what
the question is who gets the dot?
Well, Vince has to get it just from experience.
You would think from that standpoint, but then when they pull him off the field in the passing situations, then what? I mean,
is that why he wasn't coming off the field the other night?
I think so.
After Spillane went down, and it was a liability.
It was a liability, and it's. I
speak for all of us. We love Vince Williams. We love the way he plays. We love the story. I mean, 6th round pick. Nobody gave him a chance, but he just is a liability in coverage. There's no other way to put it. And Buffalo has to be licking their chops at that.
And he's going to get picked on if he's out there, and they're going to motion somebody into the slot and force him into a position where he's got to cover a wide receiver. And, any offensive coordinator worth his salt, if he sees that, he's going to make sure it's the number 1 or the number 2 wide receiver, and Vince Williams has got to cover him.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
No chance.
That's so.
No shot. They may as well put him back at free safety instead, and have Minka come up and cover the guy.
What do you think, Ben? That Keith Butler comes up with this week? I mean, does he have any options? I mean, I don't think any of us are crazy about Marcus Allen. I mean, do you bring Terrell Edmonds down? What do you do?
Marcus Allen would be it gives you a better chance than Vince does. I'll be frank.
Coverage wise, yeah.
Coverage wise, yes. Yep. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. You're gonna have to chuck more receivers at the line. I can tell you that. If you don't in those situations, and they have a free release versus a linebacker, you're gonna have problems.
Yeah, Ian, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that one?
So the one option that you have here is that last year when Stephon Tuitt went out, essentially used Vince Williams in passing situations, but brought him as a blitzer all the time. I don't know if you bring him as a blitzer, but Josh Allen does have some mobility, so you could use him as a quarterback spy, essentially, to try and mitigate that, Josh Allen's running factor. So I don't know. There's still the possibility, just depending on how everyone's lined up, that he gets in one of those bad spots. But if he is the sole inside linebacker, then he's going to have to be out there on third downs and long yard situations. So you almost have to either call blitz plays for him, and maybe that means Mike Hilton's in coverage more and Mike Hilton doesn't come on blitzes. Maybe it's more of Vince in a quarterback spiral. Maybe it's only 3 quote unquote defensive linemen or down linemen, and Vince in the middle is the 4th one. So maybe it's just Cam, 2 defensive ends, and Vince are in there, so that you have enough guys to cover. So there's options. None of them are good. But considering who we're playing this week,
right.
they should spy Allen a little bit because Allen can make plays with his feet.
Yeah, he definitely can. Ian, what did you think of Cam Sutton? He got his first start, obviously, in place of Steven Nelson.
Yeah, Sutton is a heady player. He's always been very smart. He just kind of lacks the physicality to play on the outside. He's a lot better in the slot and in zone coverage, I think, than he is in man, where he can kind of read the play and attack the ball in front of him. We saw him make a nice pass breakup on a pass to the outside early in the game, but there was also some communication issues. He's played very well, especially the weeks Mike Hilton was out. He filled that role comfortably well. But he's probably better than Justin Lane is on the outside right now, but I don't know if he's ever going to be a starting quality boundary corner. He could be a essentially starter quality slot corner, definitely, because the nickel is the base now. We're in nickel 72% of the time or whatever it is. So you essentially need 3 starting cornerbacks. But that being said, it was okay. He made some good plays. He made some mistakes, but I don't know if he's a long-term answer there. A 1 or 2 game stopgap, sure, yes, but a long-term answer, I'm not convinced.
Yeah. Ben, what was your overall impression of Matthew Wright? As of right now, we might get to see him again. I think Boz was he limited or didn't practice at all today with the bad hits? Yeah. What'd you think of Mr. Wright, who I believe, as my daughter said, he looks like he's 12?
Well, Mike Tomlin obviously doesn't have enough faith in him to let him kick from 45, so I don't feel great. Let's put it that way.
I don't either.
It's one of those deals where the offense has got to convert. They've got to be better in the red zone. Buffalo doesn't have a great defense this year. They've been stronger. Let's put it that way. Offensively, they're a stronger team. Fortunately for us, the Steelers are a stronger team defensively. So, we have that going for us. But yeah, they're either going to have to give them really good opportunities to kick, or they're going to have to score and not put themselves in a position where they have to count on their kicker.
I was the field goal length was one thing, but I got to tell you, his inability to kick it into the end zone on kickoffs, I think
I didn't really have a problem with that. He was dropping them like on the 2.
Right, but where I was going is that I wasn't particularly crazy about our coverage. There were a couple of times when, I don't know about you guys, I was holding my breath because it looked like the return man had a little seam at times, and of course I was getting ready to go to town on the gum chewer. But that's a concern for me. But you know what? He did his job. He made his 2 extra points. He made a field goal. I just hope that we aren't in a situation like you described where we're sitting there looking at a 45, 47 yarder and Tomlin's got to go, well, you know what? We got to go for it. So I don't know. Ian, any other thoughts? I can't remember if I had anything else on the agenda for tonight.
Do we need to enroll you in AARP there, Mark?
I'm close. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
No, I think we covered most of it. I think Ben was right about Buffalo's defense. Not as good this year as they've been in the past, but still pretty good in a couple positions. That their running game, they use a bunch of different running backs. None of them are game breakers, but kind of like Washington, that they've got 3 different running backs that they'll sprinkle into the mix, and they can all just kind of grind you down. Josh Allen's been, he was in the people were talking about him as an MVP candidate after the first 4 weeks. He kind of cooled down a little bit after that, but he's good, and they've got Stephon Diggs now at receiver, who's an absolute technician of a route runner. He's one of the best route runners in the game. So the secondary is really going to have to. They're probably going to have to bracket him. With a safety over the top and double him essentially most of the game. They don't use their tight ends a whole lot, which is good after what just happened with Logan Thomas.
Gee, what a surprise.
Yeah. And they've got a couple other, I'll say, okay receivers. I mean, Cole Beasley's a decent slot receiver. John Brown's a speedy guy with not great hands that we've seen before when he was in Baltimore. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, offensively, Buffalo can move the ball. They can score, probably I think they're averaging like 25, 26 points a game, somewhere in there around the middle of the pack. We're still averaging, I think 27 and a half after the last 2 weeks. But, the Steelers are going to have to score more points. They're not going to be able to win this game by scoring under 20 points. I don't think so either. Like they did the last few weeks. So it's going to take 27, 28, 30 points to win this game.
That's my feeling, 27 points.
Yeah. Ben, what are you looking at against the Buffalo Bills?
What are we looking? We going to make a prediction here, or what are we doing?
Oh, well, I was going to let you kind of talk a little bit about Buffalo and the matchup and stuff, and then I was going to ask about the prediction. But
like I mentioned before, I don't think their defense is as strong as it has been in years past. I think that there will be opportunities to score points here. I also think that the run game is going to figure into this game a little more strongly than it has the last few weeks, and I expect the Steelers to bounce back, both from the standpoint that they're going to be more rested this week than they have been in a while, and also because, frankly, they were humiliated on Monday. They were terrible, and just pride alone, you need to bounce back from that. I expect them to do so. And then, offensively, Josh Allen is streaky. Sometimes he's really good, and sometimes he's really bad.
He can throw some bad balls.
Really bad.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be cold, and it's going to be windy. So I don't know what we're looking at in terms of throwing the ball with either team. Buffalo is a notoriously bad place for that kind of, offense.
What are the playoff clinching scenarios this week? I know, obviously, if we win, we're in. But
if we win and the Browns lose, we clinch the division.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we could also get in with a Miami or Raiders loss, maybe. I can't remember that. Yeah, it's something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Ian. Prediction time. What do you got?
I don't feel very good about this game, honestly. I hate to take a 2-week hiatus from the podcast and come back and play against the Steelers, but I mean, we're on the road. The weather's going to be bad. We can't run the ball. Hopefully, James Conner comes back and we get back.
Home field advantage is non-existent this year.
That's true. Actually, what is it? I think away teams have a sleight advantage, like 98 to 95 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 50-50. There's no advantage this year.
No fans in that stadium.
It's true. All right, I'm gonna say I agree with Ben. I think 27 points is what it's going to take to win this game. I just don't know if we get there. I'm going to say Buffalo 24-20.
Woo. Okay. Ben, what do you got?
I'm going 27-24. So, and
27-24.
Steelers.
Steelers. Okay.
So Ben and I have Buffalo at the same. Ben's just giving the Steelers the extra touchdown that I'm not sure if they get. I'm good with that.
My gut feeling isn't real good with this. What does give me some hope is the fact that the Buffalo defense is not playing nearly as well as it did last year. But if the weather turns really ugly, then I have serious worry for us. But I'm gonna say 27-23 Bills. I just don't like the way we've played the last 2 weeks, and I have a hard time believing it's just going to turn around that quick. So I hate to do it. I'm 10-1 on my picks this year, or 10.
I don't think either one of you are considering, the situation the Steelers were in the last couple of games, and I think that plays into it, and that's why I'm picking them to win this week.
I totally see it. I can understand where you're coming from. I think they definitely looked tired towards the end of that game on Monday. I think they were mentally, emotionally, psychologically, physically, they were just spent. The constant yo-yo they had to deal with the Ravens.
Right.
We really probably should give them more credit than we have for winning that game. I know they were playing against a lot of backups, but it is what it is. But anyway, we're going to get on out of here for this edition of the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing in South Florida. And as always, hey, go Steelers.
And hey, Ravens suck.
Yes, they do. Fuck those guys.